From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Bursell. This is The Log. For the rest of the summer, we're presenting segments from our coverage of the first 6 months of the regime and the resistance. I hope this review and perspective will have value for our fight going forward. This episode features clips from January 30th and February 2nd, episodes 499 and 500. Journalism is in very bad shape right now. It's obviously one of the main targets of the MAGA fascist regime. And it's working. It's just working like a charm in many places. Of course, you and I have talked plenty about Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post and Zuckerberg at Meta. Everybody, social media, tech bros, legacy media, print, they're falling in line. You can still find it. Oh, in fact, here's a suggestion of what you can do. Be more discriminating in your choice of media. I still go to legacy media. I go to the cable guys sometimes, see what they're talking about. I definitely go to the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and, the big guys. Sure. But I always do it with my eyes wide open, The reason I go to them is because they have the resources. They do have journalists out covering actual news. But you have to go in very aware of hidden agendas. And you can do it. If you're a smart person, you can do it. It shouldn't be a problem. You just have to be skeptical of everything, especially when it comes to what they're covering, what they're not covering, any opinion that seeps into what should be a straight news story. So you can do it. You're smart. You can handle it. But in addition, well, I shouldn't say in addition, your main source, I'm going to suggest, as I've taken to now, for many years, my main source is always non-corporate news. So that's Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, or it's Axios or ProPublica, or any one of, there are lots of sources out there. They're really not hard to find. And there are plenty of good podcasts out there. I've recommended before, and I'll remind you about Howie Hawkins, who hosts Green Socialist Notes, I think it's called, podcast. There again, speaking of the mainstream, I check in with Pod Save America, but believe me, I am always 100% aware of where these guys are coming from. They are straight establishment, capital D Democrats. I know exactly what their agenda is. I know what their mindset is. They're good, honest people. See, that's the thing. You don't have to vilify. I don't vilify the Pod Save America guys. I just know their shortcomings. So yeah, when you go to the mainstream, just be skeptical and have your eyes wide open and your ears wide open. But get most of your information from non-corporate media and you'll be much better off. You'll get information that you won't get from the other guys. You'll get analysis that you won't get elsewhere. So just those couple of small suggestions, and you can find others. The retribution, I will be your retribution, the whole line, that's happening here in the first 10 days in full force. They've already announced they're going to be, quote, investigating the investigators, something that was promised and expected. Anybody at DOJ? Certainly the Jan 6 committee, the congressional committee. So the investigation of the investigators has begun, or at least has been announced. The career Department of Justice officials who were assigned to work under Jack Smith have all just been summarily fired just because they did their jobs. Anything that had to do with the investigation of the Orange Menace, anybody who had any part in that at all, just gone, fired. Again, career civil servants, experts in their fields, the top people in their profession. They were given an assignment, they did their job to the best of their ability, and for that, they're fired. Because the Orange Menace is on his little retribution tour. It's happening at the Department of Defense. The joke, Pete Hegseth, who promised up and down to take politics out of the military before he does anything else, his very first act as Department of Defense Secretary is to, this is so petty, so small, take down the painting of General Milley, who was the chair of the Joint Chiefs, who got on the wrong side of the Orange Menace, and he didn't like him. Yeah, apparently in the Pentagon, there's this great wall and all the chairs of the Joint Chiefs over the years, since I think 1949, if I remember correctly. That's when that position came into being. Yeah, all the portraits all lined up, and no, just took it down. And not only that, they're going to, I guess they're going to investigate him, maybe demote him in rank. I'm not sure exactly what they can do to him. Joe Biden did give Milley, along with dozens of other people, that preemptive pardon. So they can't prosecute him, but they can make his life hell. They can demote him. Can they still court-martial him? I'm not sure if a pardon applies to a court-martial. Somebody smarter than me can tell me. But what they did do was they took away his security detail. And they took away his security clearance. Oh, those security clearances, man, they're handing those out like candy to their own people. And anybody they don't quite trust entirely, they're pulling back their security clearances. So Milley has no more security clearance. And most importantly, he has no security team. You know, you get security around you. You get protection, especially for somebody like Milley, who was in on the planning and execution of the assassination of Iran's Soleimani. Remember that? So he's got basically a price on his head from Iran, and the Orange Menace says, okay, you're on your own. You can buy your own security. You're done with us. Plenty of bad things to say about RFK, mainly about his attitudes regarding vaccines. He's been all over the map. He claims up and down that he's not anti-vaccine. He's just pro-science and pro-safety. And this might make my regular listeners unhappy with me. RFK appears to be really devoted to his mission. And I think he is. And part of that mission aligns with my mission. He and I are in sync in a lot of things, especially when it comes to chronic disease. He points out rightly that when he was a kid, that wasn't a problem in the United States. There wasn't widespread chronic disease like we have now. Obesity and heart disease and diabetes and all sorts of things, cancer. The numbers are just through the roof compared to when he and I were kids. And he places a lot or most of the blame on things like Big Pharma and their overemphasis on drugging us up every chance they get and just making money. He swings a very heavy bat at big food and the dozens and dozens of chemicals in every morsel of so-called food we eat. So he and I are in complete alignment on a lot of this stuff. So I have very mixed feelings about the guy. The problem is, of course, the problems are obvious. I don't know if I have to repeat those, but I guess I should after what I've said here. The problems are obvious. He seems to have no respect at all. And there's a paradox happening here. He has no respect at all for science, even though that's his big rallying cry. I just want good science. That's what he says about vaccines. I'm not anti-vaccine. I just want good science. But the thing is, when the science shows him to be wrong, well, then he's quite selective. So he does definitely have a problem. RFK has a huge problem with lying, with basic honesty. He's either lying to himself, lying to us, lying to others. I don't know what's going on in his head. It's like the Orange Menace. It's hard to figure out what's going on in these guys' heads. But he has a very definite problem with the truth. If the science shows him to be wrong, he doesn't like to accept that. He just wants to ask more questions. And that's the whole conspiracy theory excuse. Well, I'm just asking questions. He loves that. I'm just asking questions. So RFK, I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens here. And we'll have to hold his feet to the fire, and we'll have to, do our due diligence and holler loudly when bad things happen. But, it's so hard when he's just singing my song. And he is. And he's in perfect tune and in perfect rhythm on things like chronic disease and all the chemicals in big food and big pharma. And the way the large corporations, the food and pharma and et cetera, are compromised in league with the federal agencies that are supposed to govern them. Watch them. Yeah, there is a revolving door across government, not just in Health and Human Services area, but across all areas of government. There's this revolving door between the industries they're supposed to regulate and the agencies themselves and the lobbyists. And so there's all of that. And this is one of his big talking points. So he's an interesting dude, to say the least. And that's not even getting to the whole vaccine thing, which there doesn't seem to be much controversy, in my mind at least, when it comes to the vaccine issue. He said everything. He's been on every side of the vaccine issue as far as his statements. But if you look at his whole career, the last 20, 30 years, it's pretty much impossible to deny that he's anti-vax. Or at the very least, he's dangerous because millions upon millions of dopes can use his words. They can cherry pick. Again, he said everything, so they cherry pick what they like and then use that to justify, not getting their kids the measles vaccine or the polio vaccine, for God's sake. So I agree with the harshest critics. I think RFK in that role of Health and Human Services could mean lives, many lives, hundreds, thousands of lives. It's that dangerous, especially when it comes to vaccines. If he had every success regarding the earlier stuff, the chronic disease, the big food, big pharma, if he had 100% success in that area, he might save thousands and thousands of lives. I don't know how long he'll last, but as long as he does, we have to do with RFK like we have to do with everything right now. And that's keep an eye on him, holler really loudly when bad things happen. As I've been stressing the last couple of episodes, it's up to us now. We are all we've got. Because we don't have the Democrats, they just continue to disappoint. You know how the Democrats are responding to this? They're fundraising. Are you getting fundraising emails? I am. That seems to be their main response, is to send me an email to tell me how horrible the Orange Menace is and to ask me for money. That's their response. And the reporting from the DC press corps, they're telling us that the Democrats behind doors in their little strategy meetings the Dems have decided, well, we're not going to chase shiny objects. We're not going to be distracted, but rather we should appeal to the voters with our sound economic policies. It's also dry and boring and pointless. They've also decided, according to these reports I've been reading, that behind closed doors, the Democrats have decided together that they're going to back off from anything that's labeled woke. They're not going to get too excited about anything that's woke. Oh, transgender people no longer exist. Well, okay, that's fine. That's not our fight anymore. Oh, don't get too tied up in the immigration raids. So they want us to get mad and excited about that. That's just Trump derangement syndrome. We don't want to be labeled that. So basically the Democrats have withdrawn from the fight. But they're using it to raise money. And they're already using it to run for president. Have you noticed Gretchen Whitmer is on a book tour? She's just popping up everywhere. I saw Jared Polis on, I think, the NewsHour, Colorado governor. It's like, well, why do I see Jared Polis? Let's find some excuse to get him on the air. They're already running for president. This is all they do. They raise money and they run for office. That's all they do. We're all we've got. It's us now. I'm so tired of people dissing social media. I mean, our role in it. Yeah, I diss social media all the time as far as the algorithms and the owners and the powers. Yes. What I don't like is people telling us that to post something political is not only pointless, but it makes you some kind of a dweeb. No, I'm telling you right now, I give you my full permission and blessing and encouragement to use social media every day and to voice your concerns and to holler loudly and to use memes and do whatever you need to do. A strong presence on social media of discontent has an effect on our country. It just does. So do the things we always talk about. Write letters, make phone calls, sign petitions, hit the streets, share on social media, create your own podcast. Don't let people laugh you off the stage. No. It's still powerful. We still have power. That's the good news. They're trying to wrestle it away from us, but we still got a little bit. No, we got more than a little bit. We have power. You have to believe that, and you have to use it. If you don't use it, we lose it. Of course, he hit a new low, which he does on the regular. There'll be a new low next time we talk, I'm sure, but the current new low was that Thursday little press conference he had regarding the midair crash of the Black Hawk helicopter with the passenger airliner. And you know the story. Of course, he launches into this ridiculous tirade about DEI, which was just filled with ignorance, filled with bigotry, and it was the lowest you can go. What we really need at these press conferences and throughout the media, we need one reporter to break the ice. And then after that, others can follow suit. But we need one reporter to stand up and say, "Sir, at long last, have you no decency? The display of your ignorance and the display of your bigotry, are you just a psychopath? What's the story?" He should look at all the other reporters in the room and say, "Guys, please, journalists, my fellow journalists, can we be straight about this? Can we all look at each other in the eye and be honest about what's happening here? For God's sakes, the man's a psychopath. Can we all just say it out loud? Can we say it to his face? I say it now to your face. You're a menace." It's got to happen. At some point, it just has to happen. And he gets up like Kim Jong-un at the podium and invites Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy to come up. And of course, Sean has to kiss his ass for a couple of minutes before he can say anything else. And then when he gets to saying something else, it's just repeating the same ridiculous lies about DEI. He's got his little yes man, henchman, Pete Hegseth, recently minted Secretary of Defense, stands up again, kisses the dear leader's ass for a couple of minutes, and then repeats his talking points. Has Vice President Vance come up and do the same thing. So where was the reporter who stood up and said, this is a question to the two secretaries and the vice president. How do you get that far up somebody's ass? How is it possible? When is the White House press corps going to start doing this? You might think I'm kidding. You might think I'm exaggerating for effect. I'm not. I'm 1,000% serious. You got to stand up, look him in the face, tell him he's a psychopath, tell him exactly what he is. You're lying to the American public right now. And not just lying, the lies are filled with hate and bigotry. You're despicable. That's my honest, objective reporting as a journalist. The funny thing is about all this, we want reform, right? We want to, quote unquote, blow up the system, which is what the Orange Menace is doing. He's just wreaking havoc. And it's painting us into kind of a funny little corner because we also want radical reform. We want to blow things up. But because of the ridiculous way he's doing it, the dishonest way, and the way that favors him and his billionaire buddies, you know, we often talk about how sometimes we agree on the criticisms and disagree on the solutions. Well, this example couldn't be more stark. We agree that the system itself is a big problem and needs to be subject to radical reform. That's where the Orange Menace and I agree. His method of doing it and his goals as to what replaces the current system couldn't be further from where you and I are, at least where I am. I don't speak for you. Here's a little analogy. I remember many, many years ago when I was a young single guy, I dated this woman whose ideas I found to be kind of ridiculous and wacky. Now, at the time, I considered myself a radical. I had ideas that other people, many people, would consider a little wacky. But hers, and I won't get into specifics, that's not the point of the story. But the point is, all of a sudden, compared to her, I was the centrist. I was the reasonable one in the room compared to her really strange and unsupportable, indefensible ideas. She had ideas that just didn't make any sense. So in the relationship, I wound up being the reasonable one until I finally had to sort of catch myself and remind myself, wait a minute, you're defending the status quo. Well, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it came to mind. There's another point I want to make, kind of a larger point. Let's do some big picture here stuff for a minute. The attack on career civil servants that Musk and the Orange Menace and the regime are currently engaged in. That's never been my aim. If you've been listening at all over the years, I've been so critical of systems, of systemic ways we do things, big problems. But I've never criticized individual workers in government, even though I'm so highly critical of government and even of government systems. Career civil servants are just doing their job, and many of them doing their jobs beautifully. And it's such a wide range, We got researchers and engineers and doctors and teachers and just everything across the board. The people who inspect our food for safety, the responders who go out into the icy waters of the Potomac to first try to rescue, but then having to recover dead bodies in the black of night. Can you imagine? I have awe and just the utmost respect for people who do work that I know I could never do. I'm amazed by these people. And here he is, standing on their backs, standing on their necks, to somehow think he can make himself bigger and make unfounded accusations about these mythic DEI hires who are psychologically impaired. I mean, it was also ridiculous. Also, just, evil. But back to my point. Career civil servants all across the board that are being disrespected and scapegoated and fired literally by the thousands. That's never where my aim has been. These are good people doing important work. Now, they might be working in flawed systems that are designed by the elites. That's where our criticism always goes. The fish rots from the head. Our criticism is aimed at the warmongers, at the money mongers. But our ire is never aimed at the workers. And talk about the work they do. The rank and file at FEMA or at USAID or the Department of Agriculture. The people in the Treasury Department just doing the grunt work. Spend the day at your computer screen and get the right money to the right people. This is endless, thankless work, and it's being done all across the nation every day by thousands of dedicated workers making this country run. And the work they do is 1,000 times more important than some guy just working the factory line, spray coating some component that needs to go in the next rich guy's yacht. There is so much in the private sector that is just pointless, needless. It's only there to keep the money flowing. That's why people always say how important they are, because they keep the economy running. I heard a great little thing recently, and I've said it myself. You know how great ideas, a lot of people have the same great idea. Whenever you hear the word economy, just replace it with some rich guy and his yacht. So in other words, if it is, well, this will be bad for the economy, just replace it with, well, this will be bad for some rich guy and his yacht. Because that's how most people think about the economy, that it somehow has to keep going. It doesn't. The way it's designed is for rich guys and their yachts. The fact that it keeps us all alive because we're all wage slaves, well, that's just the system that makes it work. But in the end, it's for the rich guy and his yacht. So whenever you hear the word economy or read the word economy, replace it. It's a nice little thought exercise. And it turns out always to be pretty damn accurate. Well, we need just the right amount of unemployment. Because if we have too much unemployment, it's bad for the economy. If we have too much unemployment, it's bad for the rich guy and his yacht. But if we have too little unemployment, well, that disincentivizes workers, and that's bad for the economy also, i.e. bad for the rich guy and his yacht. Well, I'm getting off topic a little bit. The point I'm making right now is that I love workers. Some of them are in bad systems. That doesn't make me love the worker any less. And if you look objectively at who's doing the work that keeps us safe and keeps us going, I'll take a federal worker any day of the week, as opposed to people in what David Graeber called bullshit jobs. They exist only to keep the wheels turning, not to actually provide goods or services that we need. Speaking of government workers, I'm not talking about the cabinet. I have zero respect for the people at the top, especially when they're of a particular party there to do the bidding of the regime. Specifically now, we're talking about the current nominees that we just saw last week in their confirmation hearings, namely Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Kash Patel. Add to this infamous list Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi, already confirmed. Well, Pete Hegseth especially. Pam Bondi is technically qualified to do her job, but she's disqualified for her record as an ass kisser. But the others I mentioned, comically unqualified. You know, not one of these nominees that I've mentioned would qualify to work in the agencies that these people are supposed to head. You couldn't work emptying the wastebaskets. You couldn't work as a night watchman security guard. Because all of those positions, if you're working in a sensitive department, even if you're emptying the wastebaskets, because of the sensitive environment you work in, even that person has to pass a security clearance, has to have at least minimum qualifications of character. You can't be a drunk. You can't be an abuser of women. You can't have failed miserably in similar jobs. Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, none of these people could meet the minimum qualifications for emptying the wastebaskets at the agencies that they're set to head. That's how far into the looking glass we are. You've been listening to a best of episode of The Log, featuring clips from January 30th and February 2nd, episodes 499 and 500. Find all episodes at the website charlespurcell.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Follow on Substack and Blue Sky. Thanks to our home station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. I love you. See you out there.